On this day in history, the 20th of July 1554, Philip of Spain, heir to one of the most powerful empires in Europe, stepped onto English soil to marry Queen Mary I. I'm Claire Ridgway, historian and author, and today we're retracing Philip's extraordinary journey to England, a journey that sparked rebellion, reshaped Tudor foreign policy, and raised serious questions about who would really hold the power in this royal marriage. From triumphal arches and artillery salutes to carefully crafted legal safeguards, this is the dramatic story behind Philip's arrival and the controversial union that followed. Let me take you behind the scenes of this controversial royal match and the man who came to be King of England, in name at least. Philip of Spain was born on the 21st of May 1527. He was the son of Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor and King of Castile and Aragon, and his wife Isabel of Portugal. He was raised in Castile, but groomed to inherit his father's wide expanse of territories. Mary I wasn't his first wife. He'd been married to his first cousin, Maria Manuela, Princess of Portugal, who wasn't only the daughter of one of his maternal uncles, but also the daughter of one of his paternal aunts. Yes, the Habsburgs were inbred. Philip and Maria had married in 1543, but sadly Maria died in 1545, just days after giving birth to their son Carlos, named of course after Philip's father, Charles or Carlos V. Mary I was the eldest daughter of King Henry VIII of England by his first wife Catherine of Aragon, Emperor Charles V's maternal aunt. Mary had been born on the 18th of February 1516, making her 11 years older than Philip. She'd come to the throne of England on the 19th of July 1553 after deposing her first cousin once removed, Queen Jane or Lady Jane Grey. The 37-year-old Mary was unmarried and knew how important it was to secure the line of succession by having a child, so she set about looking for a suitable husband. Although Parliament had put forward the idea of her marrying an Englishman, such as Edward Courtenay, Earl of Devon, Charles V put forward the idea of an Anglo-Spanish alliance. After all, as well as being an important diplomatic union, it would bring England back into the Catholic fold, something that was important to Mary. Charles felt that he was too old and sick to marry Mary himself, so how about a marriage match between the English Queen and his son and heir Philip? He sent details of the proposed marriage to his son in Spain and arranged for a portrait of Philip by Titian, the famous Italian Renaissance artist, to be sent to Mary. Philip may have appeared to have been pleased by the idea, he and the gentlemen of his chamber being described as receiving the document with much happiness, but his personal correspondence to the emperor shows that he went forward with the idea only out of obedience to his father. Philip then set about making arrangements for his departure. In the meantime, Mary's Privy Council set about ensuring that English interests would be protected. Wyatt's rebellion of January 1554 showed just how uneasy many people were about Mary marrying Philip. So the Marriage Act passed by Parliament in the spring of 1554 was carefully crafted to safeguard England's sovereignty. It ensured that while Philip would be styled King of England during Mary's lifetime, he'd hold no independent power. He couldn't appoint officials, make laws, or interfere in the governance of the realm. The Act also barred Spaniards from holding English office, and crucially, it prevented England from being dragged into Philip's foreign wars. Philip was also forbidden from taking Mary or any children out of the country without Parliament's consent, and if Mary died childless, he would lose all rights and titles in England. These terms reassured Parliament and the people that England would remain an English kingdom, not a pawn of the Spanish Habsburg Empire. Back to Spain, where Philip tasked his High Steward, the Duke of Alba, with preparing his household for their trip to England. In her thesis on Philip's journey to marry Mary, Lorena Blanco Robles notes how Philip gave his household a generous choice. For those willing to go to England, their expenses would be paid and their children looked after, and there would be no consequences for those who wanted to stay in Spain. Philip's entourage was huge and included 7 stewards, his gentlemen of the chamber, yeomen, other officers, preachers, musicians, minstrels, saddlers, blacksmiths, and a dancing master, among many others. Philip left Valladolid on the 14th of May 1554, travelling on to Alcantara, where he met with his sister Juana of Austria, who accompanied him on his journey for a few days. Then on to Tordesillas and Benavente, where he engaged in a few days of leisure pursuits and hospitality with his son, 8-year-old Carlos, Prince of Asturias. Andres Munoz, who recorded Philip's journey and was a member of Carlos's household, wrote of how, on his father's departure on the 9th of June, Carlos showed great sorrow, and that Philip consoled his son with heartfelt and sweet words, giving him great hope of seeing him again soon. Philip travelled on to Santiago, being received by the gentlemen of the city on the 22nd of June and progressing through streets hung with tapestries before being introduced to the English ambassadors, with whom he met the following day, accepting the terms of the marriage. He celebrated the feast of St. John in Santiago, liberated prisoners, and gave the ambassadors a beautifully decorated gold piece before setting off on a 3-day journey to A Coruña, arriving there at 8 a.m. on the 27th of June. Lorena Blanco Robles writes, "The prince and the mayor rode through the streets followed by the others. The streets were decorated on both sides with tapestries and a triumph arch with war images and mythological creatures like nymphs, which one had the words written, 'No basta fuerza ni maña, contra el príncipe de España.' Force and cunning are not enough against the Prince of Spain." Philip was also received by the monks of the monastery of San Francisco before making his way to the harbour, where his army threw fireworks and made artillery salutes that made the local houses tremble. While on his journey, Philip had sent his fiancée jewels, which Lorena Blanco Robles describes as a diamond in the form of a rose, a diamond choker, a pendant pearl, and many other jewels, gems, pearls, and rings. He'd also sent jewels and fabrics for Mary's ladies. At A Coruña, he was informed that Mary had received his ambassadors and his gifts lovingly. Philip's fleet at A Coruña comprised 100 naus and 50 tabras, carrying a total of 12,000 soldiers and over 300 servants. Philip embarked in his nau on the morning of Thursday the 12th of July, and they set sail the following day at 3 p.m, leaving behind 20 of the naus, his infantry, and 4,000 men. On the 19th of July 1554, Philip's fleet sailed into the harbour between Southampton and the Isle of Wight, but Philip did not disembark, choosing to spend the night on board. The following day, William Howard, Lord Effingham, and 7 other English noblemen took a barge out to Philip's ship and begged him to disembark and go with them, which he did that afternoon, being received by the Earl of Arundel as chief steward, Sir Anthony Browne, Mary's Master of the Horse, the Lord Chamberlain, and other English officials. There was upset due to Philip bringing his own Spanish household when an English household of 350 had been appointed for him. But Philip's investiture as a Knight of the Order of the Garter went ahead, and Philip went to church to give thanks for his safe journey before a feast which brought together the Spaniards and English. Philip and his entourage stayed in Southampton until the 23rd of July, when they set off for Winchester to prepare for Philip's marriage to Mary. Philip was accompanied not only by his entourage, but also by the Queen's Guard. On arriving at Winchester, he was met by Bishop Stephen Gardiner and 5 other bishops, who escorted him into the cathedral, where he received the bishop's blessing and prayed. That night, Philip met Mary. She kissed his hand and he kissed her on the mouth. They then conversed, the Queen speaking French and Philip speaking Spanish. At the end of the evening, he asked her the English for buenas noches, good night, so he could say a proper farewell. The following day, the 24th of July, Mary received Philip in public before they spent more time conversing privately. Then, on the 25th of July 1554, the feast of St. James, the couple married at Winchester Cathedral. I'll share a link to my video on their wedding in the description. It was not to be a long marriage. for Mary died on the 17th of November 1558, leaving the throne to her half-sister Elizabeth. Philip was keen to keep his alliance with England, putting forward the idea that he should marry Elizabeth, but she didn't jump at this proposal, and in June 1559 Philip married Elizabeth of Valois, daughter of Henry II of France and Catherine de' Medici. She died after the birth of their fourth child in 1568, and he went on to marry his niece Anne of Austria. She died a few months after giving birth to their fifth child in 1580. Philip died in 1598. So Philip of Spain arrived in England with grandeur, jewels, an army of attendants, and the weight of a great dynastic union on his shoulders. Yet despite all the ceremony and symbolism, his marriage to Mary was short-lived, politically fraught, and ultimately childless. Still, his 1554 journey is a window into the pageantry, anxieties and diplomatic wrangling of 16th century Europe, and a fascinating reminder of just how much was riding on the arrival of one man at Southampton. I do hope you've enjoyed this deep dive. If you have, please do like, subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss future videos. And do let me know in the comments, what do you think of Philip's marriage to Mary? Political necessity, personal tragedy, a bad decision, or all of those? Do let me know your thoughts, and thank you for joining me. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.